Hello and welcome to AddOneBit. I'm so excited to have you here today. In this video, we're diving deep into one of the most transformative books on productivity and focus, Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World, by Cal Newport. If you've been struggling with distractions, feeling like you're always busy but never productive, or wondering why you can't focus like you used to, this book summary is exactly what you need. Cal Newport, a computer science professor at Georgetown University, has created a roadmap to reclaim your focus and achieve extraordinary results in a world full of distractions. Over the next hour, I'll break down the entire book, giving you the core concepts, the 4 rules of deep work, practical strategies you can apply immediately, and real-world examples that will transform how you work. So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's begin this journey to mastering deep work. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to AddOneBit, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our book summaries and productivity content. Now, let's get started. Before we dive into the strategies, let's understand what deep work actually means. Cal Newport defines deep work as professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. Think about it this way. Have you ever been so immersed in a task that hours flew by without you noticing? That's deep work. It's when you're completely focused on a cognitively demanding task without any interruptions from emails, social media, or colleagues stopping by your desk. Deep work is characterized by 3 main features. First, intense, undistracted focus. You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes or jumping between tasks. Second, high cognitive effort. You're problem-solving, thinking critically, and being creative. Third, high productivity that yields quality output. You're not just busy, you're producing meaningful work. Now, Newport contrasts this with what he calls shallow work. Shallow work includes tasks that are non-cognitively demanding, often performed while distracted. These are things like answering emails, attending routine meetings, filling out forms, or administrative tasks. They're necessary, but they don't move the needle on your most important work. Here's the critical insight. We live in a world where shallow work has taken over. We spend most of our days responding to messages, attending meetings, and staying constantly available. Meanwhile, the deep work that actually creates value and advances our careers gets pushed to the margins. Cal Newport argues that deep work is becoming increasingly rare in our economy. At the same time, it's becoming increasingly valuable. This creates a massive opportunity. Those who can cultivate the skill of deep work will thrive. Those who don't will be left behind, constantly busy but never truly productive. Deep work isn't limited to one profession. Newport gives examples of people who benefit from deep work, including academics writing research papers, software developers coding complex programs, musicians composing new pieces, writers crafting novels, artists creating masterpieces, entrepreneurs developing business strategies, and anyone whose work involves deep thinking and problem-solving. The key point is this. Deep work is a skill, not a talent you're born with. It will be difficult at first. Your mind will resist. You'll feel the pull of distractions. But with deliberate practice, discipline, and commitment, you can develop the ability to work deeply. And once you do, you'll unlock a level of productivity and quality that most people never achieve. Now that we understand what deep work is, let's explore why it matters so much. Newport builds his case on 3 fundamental pillars. Deep work is valuable, deep work is rare, and deep work is meaningful. Let's examine each one. First, deep work is valuable. In our rapidly changing economy, the ability to quickly master hard things and produce at an elite level is crucial. Both of these abilities depend on your capacity for deep work. Think about learning a new skill. Whether it's a programming language, a musical instrument, or a new area of expertise in your field, the learning happens during periods of intense focus. Deliberate practice, the kind that actually improves your abilities, requires your full attention. You can't master complex skills while multitasking or half paying attention. The same applies to producing quality work. If you're a writer, your best writing happens when you're fully immersed in the work. If you're a designer, your most creative designs emerge from deep focus sessions. If you're a consultant, your most insightful analyses come from uninterrupted thinking time. Newport introduces a formula here. High-quality work produced equals time spent times intensity of focus. If you're constantly distracted, your intensity of focus is low, which means you need far more time to produce the same quality of work. But if you can achieve deep focus, you accomplish more in less time, and the quality is superior. Second, deep work is rare. This might seem counterintuitive. If deep work is so valuable, why isn't everyone doing it? Newport identifies several culprits. Our modern workplace culture prioritizes immediate responsiveness. There's an expectation that you'll answer emails within minutes, be available on instant messaging, and attend back-to-back meetings. This culture of connectivity makes deep work nearly impossible. We've also developed what Newport calls the any-benefit mindset toward technology. We adopt new tools and platforms because they offer any possible benefit without considering the costs. Sure, Twitter might occasionally provide useful information, but what about the hundreds of hours you spend scrolling that could have been used for deep work? Social media and email create a cycle of addiction. Every notification triggers a dopamine hit. Every like, comment, or reply gives us a small reward. Our brains become wired for distraction, making it increasingly difficult to sustain focus on hard tasks. But here's the opportunity. Because deep work is becoming rare, it's becoming more valuable. If you can resist these forces and cultivate deep work, you'll stand out. You'll produce better work, advance faster, and have skills that are genuinely hard to replicate. Third, deep work is meaningful. This is perhaps the most profound insight in the book. Newport argues that a deep life is a good life. When you engage in deep work, you're fully present. You're using your cognitive abilities to their fullest extent. You're creating something of value. This produces a sense of fulfillment that shallow work can never match. Think about how you feel after a day of deep work versus a day of constant email and meetings. After deep work, you feel accomplished, energized, and satisfied. After a day of shallow work, you feel drained, stressed, and like you didn't actually accomplish anything meaningful. Newport draws on research from psychology and neuroscience showing that people are happiest when they're in a state of flow, fully absorbed in a challenging task. Deep work is the gateway to these flow states. There's also a craftsman's satisfaction in deep work. When you dedicate yourself to mastering a skill and producing quality work, you're participating in something larger than yourself. You're contributing value to the world. This creates meaning and purpose. In a world of increasing automation and artificial intelligence, deep work is one of the uniquely human capacities. Machines can handle routine tasks, but they can't match human creativity, insight, and deep thinking. By developing your capacity for deep work, you're investing in the skills that will remain valuable for decades to come. Before we get to the practical rules, let's talk about the deep work hypothesis. This is the core argument of the book, and understanding it will help you appreciate why the strategies matter. The deep work hypothesis states that the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare at exactly the same time it's becoming increasingly valuable in our economy. As a consequence, the few who cultivate this skill and then make it the core of their working life will thrive. Newport identifies 3 groups of people who will particularly thrive in the new economy. First, those who can work well and creatively with intelligent machines. Second, those who are the best at what they do. Third, those with access to capital. For most of us, the path forward is becoming excellent at what we do, and that requires deep work. The superstar effect is growing in many fields. The difference between being good and being great is enormous in terms of career outcomes and rewards. Deep work allows you to do 2 things crucial to thriving in the new economy. It helps you quickly master hard things, and it helps you produce at an elite level in terms of both quality and speed. To learn requires intense concentration. Your brain's neurons must fire in specific patterns, building and strengthening connections. This biological process requires focus. Constant distraction prevents this learning from occurring. Similarly, producing at your peak requires bringing your full cognitive abilities to bear on the task. When you're constantly switching between tasks and dealing with interruptions, you're operating far below your potential. The deep work hypothesis suggests that in a world of endless distraction, the ability to focus intensely is like a superpower. It's the foundation for learning, creating, and excelling. And the good news is that it's a superpower you can develop. Now we're getting to the practical part of the book. Newport provides 4 rules for cultivating deep work. The first rule is, work deeply. The key insight here is that waiting for inspiration to strike or relying on willpower alone won't work. You need to build routines and rituals that make deep work a regular part of your life. You need to create systems that support deep work rather than fighting against it. Newport describes 4 different philosophies or approaches to deep work. The right one for you depends on your profession, personality, and circumstances. The first is the monastic philosophy. This involves radically minimizing or eliminating shallow obligations. Think of it like a monk in a monastery, shutting themselves off from the world. A famous example is the author Neil Stephenson, who doesn't have a public email address and doesn't attend conferences. He protects his time for writing. This philosophy is extreme and only works for certain people. If your professional success depends on deep work and doesn't require rapid response to others, it might work for you. But for most people, it's too radical. The second philosophy is bimodal. This divides your time into clearly defined stretches dedicated to deep work and leaves the rest open to everything else. During the deep time, you act monastically. But during the shallow time, you're fully present and available. For example, you might dedicate 1 day per week to deep work, shutting yourself in your home office with your phone off and email closed. Or you might take a week each month for a deep work retreat. The key is that the deep work time is clearly bounded and protected. The third philosophy is rhythmic. This is probably the most accessible for most people. The idea is to generate a rhythm for deep work by transforming it into a simple, regular habit. For instance, you might establish a daily deep work habit from 6 to 8 a.m. before the workday begins. Or you might block out 2 hours every afternoon for deep work. The specific timing matters less than the consistency. Newport recommends using a calendar to track your deep work sessions, putting a big X on each day you complete your deep work goal. This creates a visual chain of success that you won't want to break. The fourth philosophy is journalistic. This fits deep work wherever you can into your schedule. This approach is named after journalists who can shift into writing mode quickly whenever they get a few free moments. However, Newport warns that this is the hardest approach. It requires the ability to switch into deep work mode on short notice, which takes practice. If you're new to deep work, start with one of the other philosophies. Whichever philosophy you choose, Newport emphasizes the importance of rituals. Where will you work? For how long? How will you work once you start? How will you support your work? Some people need a specific location for deep work. Maybe it's a particular coffee shop, a library, or a home office. The location cue helps your brain shift into focus mode. You also need to decide on the structure of your deep work session. Will you work for 90 minutes? 2 hours? 4 hours? Set a clear endpoint so you don't waste energy wondering when to stop. During the session, how will you ensure you stay focused? Some people disconnect from the internet entirely. Others use apps to block distracting websites. Find what works for you. Finally, how will you support your work? Maybe you start with a cup of coffee. Maybe you take a short walk first to clear your mind. Maybe you organize your desk before beginning. These rituals signal to your brain that it's time for deep work. Newport also discusses the concept of grand gestures. Sometimes, a radical change of environment can unlock deep productivity. J.K. Rowling famously checked into a luxury hotel to finish writing Harry Potter. Bill Gates takes think weeks, where he isolates himself in a cabin to read and think deeply. You don't need to be a billionaire to use grand gestures. Maybe you book a day at a co-working space away from your usual environment. Maybe you take a weekend trip to a cabin. The unfamiliarity and novelty can help you focus. The final element of working deeply is collaboration. While deep work often happens alone, don't make the mistake of thinking you should always work in isolation. Some of the most valuable deep work happens in collaboration with others. The key is to collaborate in a way that preserves depth. For example, whiteboard sessions with colleagues where you're deeply engaged in solving a problem together. Or peer review sessions where you're giving full attention to improving each other's work. The rule is simple. Don't avoid collaboration, but be selective about when and how you collaborate. Make sure it's genuinely adding value rather than just creating the appearance of productivity. The second rule might surprise you. Embrace boredom. What does this mean, and why does it matter? Newport's insight is that the ability to concentrate intensely is a skill that must be trained. Your brain is like a muscle. If you give in to distraction at the slightest hint of boredom, you'll never build the mental strength for deep work. Think about how most people behave. You're waiting in line at the grocery store, you pull out your phone. You're sitting at a red light, you check Instagram. You're waiting for a meeting to start, you scroll through email. Every moment of potential boredom is filled with a quick hit of stimulation. This constant seeking of novelty and stimulation rewires your brain. You lose the ability to tolerate boredom. And if you can't tolerate boredom, you can't do deep work, because deep work often requires pushing through difficult, unstimulating moments. Newport introduces the concept of productive meditation. This is the practice of taking a period when you're occupied physically but not mentally, like walking, jogging, driving, or showering, and focusing your attention on a single, well-defined professional problem. For example, during your morning commute, instead of listening to a podcast or checking your phone, dedicate that time to thinking deeply about a challenge you're facing at work. Turn the problem over in your mind. Consider different angles. Break it into sub-problems. This serves two purposes. It produces valuable insights and solutions. But more importantly, it trains your ability to resist distraction and think deeply. You're building the mental muscles you need for deep work. Newport also recommends structure for your productive meditation. Start by carefully reviewing the relevant variables for solving the problem. Then consolidate your gains by clearly identifying the next step question you need to answer. Then, finally, push yourself to try to answer that question. Be wary of two common pitfalls. The first is looping. This is when your mind avoids diving deeper into the problem by rehearsing what you already know. When you notice looping, remind yourself that you're not making progress and redirect to the next step question. The second pitfall is distraction. Your mind will try to escape the hard thinking by wandering to easier, more pleasant thoughts. When this happens, notice it without judgment and gently redirect your attention back to the problem. Another strategy Newport recommends is scheduling internet time. Instead of scheduling occasional breaks from distraction, schedule occasional breaks from focus. In other words, decide in advance when you'll use the internet and avoid it completely outside these scheduled times. This might sound extreme, but it's about training your brain. If you can check email or social media whenever the urge strikes, you'll never develop the focus muscles you need. But if you schedule specific times for these activities, you create boundaries that your brain learns to respect. This doesn't mean you need to drastically reduce your internet time. If your work requires frequent internet use, you can schedule it frequently. The key is that it's scheduled, not impulsive. One important note. This strategy works even if your job requires frequent internet use. The goal isn't to reduce the total time online, but to eliminate the ability to seek distraction when your brain finds deep work challenging. You can also practice this outside of work. When you're at home in the evening, resist the urge to constantly check your phone. Schedule times to check messages and social media, and stick to those times. Newport suggests exercises to improve your ability to focus. One is memory training. Try to memorize a deck of cards using a memory palace technique. This requires intense concentration and gives your brain a workout. Another is to set strict time limits for deep work sessions and stick to them. If you commit to working on a challenging task for 90 minutes, don't stop before the time is up, even if you feel stuck. Push through the discomfort. This builds your concentration endurance. The underlying principle is simple. Your ability to focus is like a muscle. If you give in to distraction constantly, the muscle atrophies. If you regularly challenge it and push through boredom and difficulty, it grows stronger. The third rule is controversial but increasingly relevant. Quit social media. Or at the very least, be far more selective about which network tools you use. Newport's argument isn't that social media is inherently evil. Rather, it's that we apply an any-benefit approach to these tools. We assume that because a tool offers some benefit, we should use it. But this ignores the costs. Every minute you spend on social media is a minute you can't spend on deep work. Every notification that pulls your attention fragments your focus. Every evening spent scrolling is an evening you could have spent reading, learning, or creating. Newport introduces the craftsman approach to tool selection. This says you should adopt a tool only if its positive impacts on your professional and personal life substantially outweigh its negative impacts. Notice the word substantially. It's not enough for the benefits to barely outweigh the costs. The benefits must be significant and clear. To apply this approach, start by identifying the core factors that determine success and happiness in your professional and personal life. For example, professionally, maybe it's producing high-quality research papers and building relationships with other researchers. Personally, maybe it's spending quality time with family and maintaining physical fitness. Then, for each tool you currently use, ask whether it has a substantially positive, substantially negative, or little impact on each of these core factors. Let's take Twitter as an example. Does it have a substantially positive impact on your ability to produce high-quality research? Probably not. Sure, you might occasionally discover an interesting paper, but you could achieve the same benefit more efficiently through other means. Does it have a substantially positive impact on building relationships with other researchers? Maybe, if you're actively engaging in substantive conversations. But if you're mostly scrolling and reading, probably not. Does it have a substantially positive impact on spending quality time with family? Almost certainly not. If anything, it detracts from this goal. Does it have a substantially positive impact on maintaining physical fitness? No. Based on this analysis, the craftsman approach would suggest quitting Twitter, despite the fact that it offers some minor benefits. Newport acknowledges that this approach is uncomfortable. We're afraid of missing out. What if something important happens and we don't know about it? What if we lose touch with friends? But he argues that these fears are overblown. The truly important things in life don't happen on social media. Your real relationships happen face-to-face or through meaningful one-on-one communication. The information you actually need comes from sources you intentionally seek out, not from scrolling a feed. He suggests a 30-day experiment. Pick a service you currently use. Stop using it completely for 30 days. Don't announce you're doing this. Just stop. After 30 days, ask yourself 2 questions. Would the last 30 days have been notably better if I had been able to use this service? Did people care that I wasn't using this service? If the answer to both questions is no, quit the service permanently. If the answer to both is yes, return to using it. If the answers are mixed, think carefully about whether the benefits truly outweigh the costs. Newport also addresses the argument that social media is important for professional networking or marketing. He calls this the any benefit trap. Sure, social media might provide some networking or marketing benefit. But is it the best use of your time for these goals? For networking, direct communication, attending conferences, and producing excellent work will have far more impact than maintaining a social media presence. For marketing, there are often more effective strategies that don't fragment your attention. He tells the story of an executive who realized he was spending hours each day on social media under the guise of building his brand. When he actually analyzed the impact, he found it was negligible. He quit all social media and saw no negative impact on his career. In fact, his career accelerated because he could dedicate more time to deep work. Beyond social media, Newport encourages us to be selective about all internet entertainment. The internet is designed to be addictive. News sites, blogs, YouTube, Reddit, every platform wants to capture as much of your attention as possible. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy entertainment, but be intentional about it. Choose your entertainment deliberately rather than defaulting to whatever catches your attention in the moment. For example, instead of aimlessly browsing the internet in the evening, decide in advance what you want to do. Maybe you want to watch a specific movie, read a book, work on a hobby, or spend time with friends. Whatever it is, choose it deliberately. The key insight is that network tools are not neutral. They have costs. Every minute spent on them is a minute not spent on something else. And they're specifically designed to be as engaging as possible, which makes them particularly dangerous for your ability to do deep work. By quitting social media or being radically more selective about which tools you use, you reclaim huge amounts of time and attention for the things that actually matter in your life. The fourth and final rule is, drain the shallows. This means aggressively reducing the time you spend on shallow work to make more room for deep work. Remember, shallow work is the non-cognitively demanding, logistical tasks that don't create much new value and are easy to replicate. Things like email, meetings, administrative tasks, and so on. The problem is that shallow work expands to fill the time available. If you don't proactively manage it, it will consume your entire day, leaving no time for deep work. Newport's first strategy is to schedule every minute of your day. This doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible. It means being intentional about how you use your time. At the start of each day, or the evening before, create a time block schedule. Divide your day into blocks and assign activities to each block. Include everything, from deep work sessions to meals to exercise to responding to email. This serves multiple purposes. It forces you to confront how much time you actually have. It helps you protect time for deep work. And it makes you aware of when shallow work is taking over. Newport emphasizes that this schedule won't be perfect. Things will come up that require you to adjust. That's fine. The goal isn't to follow a rigid schedule, but to be intentional about how you're spending your time. If you need to reschedule blocks, do so. But do it consciously. Ask yourself whether the thing that came up is actually more important than what you had planned. Often, the answer will be no, and you can defer or decline the interruption. Another strategy is to quantify the depth of every activity. Not all work is equally deep or shallow. Some tasks require intense focus and create significant value. Others are somewhere in the middle. Newport suggests asking this question: how long would it take in months to train a smart recent college graduate with no specialized training in my field to complete this task? If the answer is many months, the task is deep. If the answer is a few days or weeks, the task is shallow. Once you've classified your tasks, you can make informed decisions about how to allocate your time. You might realize you're spending 70% of your time on shallow work that could be delegated, automated, or eliminated. Set a shallow work budget. Decide in advance what percentage of your time you'll allow for shallow work. For most people in knowledge work jobs, 30 to 50% is realistic. Some highly specialized roles might aim for even less. Then track your time and stick to your budget. If shallow work starts to exceed your budget, start saying no to things, delegating tasks, or finding ways to make shallow work more efficient. Newport also recommends finishing your workday at a set time. He calls this fixed schedule productivity. You choose a firm end time for your workday and work backward to find productivity strategies that allow you to respect this commitment. For example, you might decide that you'll finish work at 5:30 p.m. every day, no exceptions. This constraint forces you to be ruthless about how you spend your time. You can't afford to waste hours in unproductive meetings or on low-value email because you have a hard stop. This might seem like it would reduce your productivity. In fact, the opposite happens. When you have limited time, you become more focused and efficient. You ruthlessly eliminate shallow work. You protect your deep work time, and you accomplish more in less time. Newport shares his own experience. For years, he's maintained a practice of ending his workday at 5:30. This forced him to be incredibly selective about how he spends his time. And despite working fewer hours than many of his peers, he's been highly productive, publishing papers, writing books, and earning tenure. Another tactic is to make people who send you email do more work. Newport suggests using sender filters, where you make it slightly harder for people to reach you by email. For example, you might have a contact form on your website that asks specific questions, discouraging vague or low-priority messages. You can also be slow to respond. If an email isn't urgent or important, there's no need to respond immediately. In many cases, if you wait long enough, the issue resolves itself without your involvement. When you do respond, do process-centric replies. Instead of a quick back and forth, think through the entire process and provide a comprehensive response that minimizes future messages. For example, instead of saying, "Let's meet sometime," say, "I'm available Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 11 a.m. Please let me know which works for you, and I'll send a calendar invitation with a meeting agenda." Newport also encourages becoming hard to reach. Don't list your email address prominently on every platform. Don't feel obligated to respond to every message. Be selective about which communication channels you monitor. This might feel uncomfortable. We worry about being rude or missing opportunities. But Newport argues that the cost of constant availability far outweighs the benefits. Most messages don't require a response. Most opportunities that require immediate response aren't actually valuable opportunities. The final aspect of draining the shallows is learning to say no. This is perhaps the hardest skill, but also one of the most important. Every yes to something is a no to something else. When you say yes to a shallow commitment, you're saying no to deep work. Newport recommends a simple strategy. When considering a new commitment, ask whether it directly supports your core professional and personal goals. If it doesn't, decline it. You don't need to be rude. You can say, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm overcommit right now and can't take this on." Most people will understand. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all shallow work. Some is necessary. The goal is to minimize it, confine it, and prevent it from taking over your schedule and your life. Now that we've covered all 4 rules, let's talk about how to put this into practice. How do you actually build a deep work practice? Start small. Don't try to transform your entire life overnight. Pick one strategy from the book and focus on implementing it well. Maybe you start with a daily deep work ritual of 90 minutes each morning. Maybe you quit one social media platform. Maybe you start scheduling your days. Whatever you choose, commit to it for at least a month. Deep work is a skill that takes time to develop. You won't see dramatic results in the first week. But if you stick with it, you'll notice improvement. Track your progress. Keep a log of your deep work hours. Note when you were able to focus well and when you struggled. This data will help you identify patterns and refine your approach. Be patient with yourself. You'll have days when you fail. You'll give in to distractions. You'll skip your deep work session. That's normal. What matters is that you get back on track the next day. Experiment to find what works for you. The strategies in the book are guidelines, not rules. Maybe you work better in the evening than the morning. Maybe you need music to focus, or maybe you need silence. Try different approaches and pay attention to what produces the best results. Create accountability. Tell someone about your deep work goals. Maybe you find a friend who wants to develop this skill too, and you check in with each other weekly. Maybe you share your deep work log with a mentor. External accountability helps maintain commitment. Design your environment for deep work. If possible, create a dedicated space for deep work. Keep it free of distractions. Make it comfortable and conducive to focus. Even small changes, like keeping your phone in another room during deep work sessions, can make a big difference. Protect your deep work time fiercely. Treat it like an important meeting that can't be rescheduled. When someone asks to meet during your deep work block, decline and offer an alternative time. Communicate your boundaries to others. Let your colleagues, friends, and family know about your deep work practice. Explain that you'll be unavailable during certain times, and help them understand why this matters. Most people will be supportive once they understand. Measure what matters. Don't confuse busyness with productivity. Track outcomes, not just hours. Are you producing better work? Are you learning faster? Are you accomplishing your most important goals? These are the metrics that matter. Regularly review and adjust your approach. Every few weeks, reflect on how your deep work practice is going. What's working? What's not? What obstacles are you facing? Use these insights to refine your strategies. Consider the opportunity cost of not doing deep work. Every hour spent in shallow work is an hour you could have spent creating something valuable, learning something important, or advancing toward your goals. When you frame it this way, the cost of distraction becomes clear. Remember why you're doing this. Deep work isn't just about productivity. It's about living a more meaningful, engaged, and satisfying life. It's about using your cognitive abilities to their fullest extent. It's about creating work you're proud of. Newport emphasizes that deep work is increasingly rare, but it's also increasingly valuable. By developing this skill, you're investing in your future. You're building a competitive advantage that's hard to replicate. The world is full of people who are constantly busy but never truly productive. They spend their days in a flurry of email, meetings, and social media, but they're not making real progress on what matters. Don't be one of those people. Instead, be someone who can focus deeply, think clearly, and produce work of exceptional quality. Be someone who uses their time and attention deliberately rather than letting it be fragmented by every distraction. This is the promise of deep work. It's not easy. It requires discipline, practice, and sacrifice. But the rewards, both professional and personal, are immense. Let's look at some real-world examples of deep work in action. These stories illustrate how different people have applied these principles to achieve extraordinary results. Carl Jung, the famous psychiatrist, built a stone tower in the woods as a retreat for deep thinking. He would disappear to this tower for weeks at a time, free from all distractions, to develop his theories. This monastic approach to deep work produced some of the most influential ideas in psychology. Bill Gates, when he was running Microsoft, famously took think weeks, twice a year. He would isolate himself in a lakeside cottage with nothing but books and papers, and spend a week reading and thinking deeply about the future of technology and Microsoft's strategy. Many of Microsoft's major strategic decisions came from insights during these deep work retreats. J.K. Rowling, while writing the final Harry Potter book, checked into a luxury hotel to escape distractions and maintain deep focus. The change of environment and elimination of daily responsibilities allowed her to immerse herself completely in the writing. Neil Stephenson, a science fiction author, doesn't have a public email address and doesn't engage in social media. He protects his attention ruthlessly to maintain the deep focus required for writing complex novels. Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist and professor, uses a bimodal approach. He dedicates specific periods to deep work, during which he's completely unavailable. During these periods, he produces an extraordinary volume of high-quality research. Outside these periods, he's fully accessible and engaged with students and colleagues. These are famous examples, but deep work applies to everyone. A software developer who blocks out 4 hours each morning for coding without interruptions will produce better code faster. A consultant who dedicates 1 day per week to deep analysis will provide more insightful recommendations. A student who studies in focused 90-minute blocks will learn more effectively than one who studies for hours while constantly checking their phone. The key is adapting deep work principles to your specific situation. You don't need to build a tower in the woods or check into a luxury hotel. You just need to create the conditions for deep focus within the constraints of your life. Let's address some common challenges people face when trying to implement deep work. Challenge 1. My job requires me to be constantly available. Newport's response is that this is often a false belief. Yes, some jobs genuinely require rapid response. But most people overestimate how available they need to be. Try this experiment. Be unavailable for specific blocks of time and see what happens. In most cases, the world doesn't end. People adapt. If you genuinely can't block out large chunks of time, use the rhythmic or journalistic approach. Even 1 hour of uninterrupted deep work per day is valuable. Challenge 2. I can't focus for long periods. My mind wanders. This is normal, especially if you're not used to deep work. Your brain needs training. Start with shorter sessions, maybe 30 minutes, and gradually increase the duration. Use techniques like productive meditation to build your focus muscles. Challenge 3. I feel guilty taking time away from responding to people. Reframe this. By doing deep work, you're creating more value. You're serving people better by producing excellent work than you would by being constantly available for shallow interactions. The people who matter will understand and appreciate this. Challenge 4. I don't know what to work on during deep work time. Plan ahead. Before each deep work session, identify the specific task or problem you'll tackle. Having a clear objective prevents wasted time at the start of the session. Challenge 5. Emergencies and urgent requests keep interrupting my deep work. Distinguish between true emergencies and things that feel urgent but aren't. Most urgent requests can wait a few hours. For the rare true emergencies, give people an alternative way to reach you that you'll check during scheduled breaks. Challenge 6. I feel like I'm missing out when I disconnect from social media and email. This fear of missing out is powerful but usually unfounded. Ask yourself what you actually missed the last time you were away from these platforms for a few hours. In most cases, nothing important. Challenge 7. My workplace culture doesn't support deep work. This is challenging. If possible, educate your colleagues and managers about the value of deep work. Show them the results. Sometimes leading by example is the best approach. If the culture is truly incompatible with deep work, it might be worth considering whether this is the right environment for you long-term. The key is to start where you are and work with what you have. Perfect conditions for deep work are rare, but you can almost always create better conditions than what you have now. And that brings us to the end of this comprehensive deep work summary. We've covered the definition of deep work, why it matters, the deep work hypothesis, and all 4 rules for cultivating deep work in your life. To recap the 4 rules: work deeply by establishing routines and rituals. Embrace boredom to train your focus muscles. Quit social media or be radically more selective about network tools. And drain the shallows by minimizing shallow work. The core message is simple but profound. In a world of constant distraction, the ability to focus deeply is becoming both rare and valuable. Those who can cultivate this skill will thrive. Those who can't will struggle. Deep work isn't just about productivity. It's about living a more meaningful, engaged, and satisfying life. It's about using your cognitive abilities to create work you're proud of. It's about being fully present in what you do. If you found this summary valuable, please give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe to AddOneBit for more book summaries and productivity content. And hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. If you want to dive deeper into these concepts, I highly recommend reading the full book. Cal Newport provides many more examples, scientific research, and practical strategies that we couldn't cover in this summary. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. We all know people who are constantly busy but never truly productive. This could be the video that changes their approach to work and life. Thank you so much for watching. I'm grateful you spent this hour with me learning about deep work. Now go out there and put these principles into practice. Start small, be consistent, and watch how your productivity and quality of work transform. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep doing deep work. This is AddOneBit, signing off.